Hello and welcome to Joy of Books with me, Miss Joy. Today's offering is The Other Side of Truth by Beverley Naidoo. This adult fiction book was released in 2000 and contains 227 pages. Sharing his views on the book today is author and teacher TC.
Yes, the book begins with chapter 1 called Survivors, Lagos, Nigeria. And it begins with this. Sade is slipping her English book into her school bag when Mama screams. Two sharp cracks splinter the air. She hears her father's fierce cry, rising, falling. No! No! The revving of a car and skidding of tyres smother his voice. Her bag topples from the bed, spilling books, pen and pencil onto the floor. She races to the veranda, pushing past Femi in the doorway. His body is wooden with fright. Mama, me, she whispers. Papa is kneeling in the driveway. Mama partly curled up against him. One bare leg stretches out in front of her. His strong hands grip her, trying to halt the growing scarlet monster. But it has already spread down her bright white nurse's uniform. It stains the earth around them. A few seconds, that is all. Later, it will always seem much longer. Yeah, that's the opening to this book by Beverley Naidoo, The Other Side of Truth. So that describes there a Nigerian journalist who is under attack. It's an assassination attempt by the local armed forces, and unfortunately his wife is fatally wounded in that opening scene. The book is set in autumn 1995 when General Abacha is waging a campaign against journalists who are revealing the atrocities that are taking place in parts of Nigeria. Fearing for his family's life, he makes a decision to send his two children, Sade and Femi, to London to live with Uncle Deli. This all happens very quickly, of course, as they are bundled underneath a blanket into the back of a car to the local airport, and then they must lie when they go through to the check-in desk with a lady on the plane, this Mrs. Bankole. And unfortunately, when they reach London, Mrs. Bankole abandons them. Clearly, she's been paid. They abandon the two children, and poor Sade and Femi are left to walk the streets of London. And of course, not really dressed for the climate as well. The cold London streets, no place for these 10 and 12-year-old young people. In London, no place for a 12-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy, that's for sure. After walking the streets after dark, they eventually find themselves in a video shop. Do they even exist anymore? showing my age there, or the book showing its age. And there's a gang that smashes up the video store, and wrong place, wrong time. So Sade and Femi get taken in by the police and then onto social services. They're taken in by a kind lady, Mrs. Graham, but her less kind son, Kevin. That doesn't quite work out, so they end up going to the Kings, the Jamaican foster parents. Sade then goes to school, a separate school to younger brother Femi, where she's bullied by three girls there. So it is certainly a traumatic tale, I would say. Definitely a growing up, rites of passage, coming of age. All these would be themes of this as well, but the overriding aspect of it is the point of view of the refugee. And again, way ahead of its time in this book. If you're looking at what's happening in the UK at the moment with illegal immigrants coming across on boats in tens of thousands every month, this is certainly going to be something that's going to be a relevant story to look at for classes to study in English lessons. In fact, Sade's friend or best friend is Mariam, who is a Somalian refugee, and we learn in one of the chapters that she had to walk all the way across Somalia to find refuge and eventually make her way to the UK. So that's definitely a large aspect of the novel. Lots of different aspects to the book as well. Of course, culture clashes being one, freedom of speech in Nigeria being another. And of course, these are all very topical issues in the modern day as well. The third-person narrative allows characters to come and go as appropriate for Beverley Naidoo's choices. It was interesting that the author had also suffered at the hands of a kind of discriminative regime. So that's the apartheid in South Africa, where she was a student. So it's clear that she's writing with passion and with truth and honesty, and of course, from a vantage point of her own personal experiences, of course, transferring that across to Nigeria. Very, very moving story. Like, definitely worth a read, I would say. I particularly like the aspects of it where they would have the statements from Sade, but it was quotes from the father. You know, he clearly wanted to bring them up to be truthful, honest, caring individuals. So I really quite like that. Of course, the irony, deliberate irony, is that the children's father does find himself in England, but by not maybe doing it in a truthful way. So he does get caught at customs by not declaring that he was claiming refuge. And then, of course, the battle continues then. Sade is trying to get the father released from the detention centre. She goes to the 7 o'clock news. If there was one criticism of the book, I would say probably that aspect. Is it believable? Could you go to a news reader coming out of the BBC building, grab them and tell them you've got a story? I don't know. Maybe not in the modern age, but possibly 20 odd years ago when the book was written, that might have been. It's a romantic aspect of the plot narrative for sure. Whether or not it would actually happen, I'm not too sure about that. But like I say, very, very, very good book. I think at the time there were a spate of similar theme books. So Refugee, Boy Springs to Mind, that's Benjamin Zephaniah, and Bernard Ashley's Little Soldier. So there was clearly a big issue of this in the late 1990s. And for sure, those issues have only got worse, I would say, in the modern age, particularly in the UK. But well worth a read, this book.
Well, thank you very much for your review of this very interesting children's book, TC. The Other Side of Truth is Beverley Naidoo's, available from all good book outlets. Thank you for joining me, and please remember to like and subscribe to Joy of Books.